Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for coming to today's artist talk for the exhibition In the Garden, featuring artists Peggy Murphy, Nancy Cooke, and Sarah Roche. We're going to begin the talk with a walkthrough of the exhibition. Tina's going to show you the installation, and then each artist will speak. Just so you know, we do have open hours, so you can come in person and see the show. Wednesday through Friday, 10 to 6, Saturday, Sunday, 12 to 6. And all the work is also available on the website. This exhibition was originally scheduled for May, but was postponed due to the pandemic. So we're happy to have it now, and I think it's something that everyone needs to see. It's a very restorative and uplifting show. A staple subject for artists, gardens and nature have recently become a renewed focus for many, providing respite during this time. Reflecting her love of Matisse and Bernard, Peggy Murphy seeks to reduce her observed from life still lifes subjects to essentials, celebrating the color, line, and brushwork of the painted surface itself. She holds a certificate from the Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts. Peggy showed with us in 2018 with Julie Zahn and Joan Wadley Curran in the three-person exhibition Juxtaposed. Nature in all its forms inspires Nancy Cooke, but imagination, intuition, and the surprise of the unexpected discovery are what compel her to create her mixed media paintings. A former analytical scientist, she holds an MFA from the Pennsylvania Academy. Nancy showed with us in the 2019 exhibition curated by Bill Scott, An Inherently Hopeful Gesture. Sarah Roche's garden paintings reflect years of sketchbook drawings and are characterized by whimsy and bright color. She earned an MFA from the University of Pennsylvania and teaches at the Tyler School of Art and Raritan Valley Community College. Sarah was one of our very first artists. She showed with us in 2006, just after we opened with a solo show. She showed with the ceramic sculptor Bill Machtold in the exhibition Apples and Oranges, and most recently in 2018 with Kellyanne Monahan in the exhibition What the Water Does. So now we'll turn it over to the artists and begin with Peggy Murphy.
Helps pull my painting together, and so I choose a background color, then I decide what color flowers to add, and I've got a whole fabric collection. I add in fabrics. I try to look for each other, good line and move the painting, and when I get something set up that I like, that's when I start. And lately, in the couple of years, I wanted to add a figure to the painting. You can see the figure of the Venus de Milo in there. I was able to find this beautiful statue online, actually, that I ordered from Greece, and she looks formidable. The thing about having it and putting it in work is no matter how I turn it or which direction I look at it from, it's got amazing lines and forms, which to me was a revelation. I've only looked at it from the front, I guess, in a museum or in a photograph. And then I have this male, was it PAFA 80s, cast in bronze. So I think that the figures kind of give the paintings an added can read whatever you want. Too hard trying to interpret my own just like the feeling they give the paintings. I also have this of a woman that I bought somewhere a long time ago, and it's kind of got a Renaissance feel to it, so I've added that to a couple pieces. And these smaller pieces, which I have in the gallery, these little floral pieces, started a year ago. I went to a wedding, and she wanted a painting of her bouquet for a wedding gift. So I had her make photographs and send them to me, and I chose a couple of photographs and I did the painting, and I enjoyed the process and I liked the result. So I've done about a dozen of those. Most of them I do for where I did have the painting home, where I didn't have the flowers in her. A lot of work for, because I'll go back in times and I like to see what I've done in the past. What else? I don't know, I guess, and the materials, using the flash paint in the last couple of years, and that lately I've been using these oil sticks, which I purchased a whole ton of them when Pearl Paint went out of business. And I didn't know what to do with them, but they're great, have great texture, and if you mix them with linseed oil, then they go on really smooth, or they can go on a little rougher. So I've been adding those in too. So in oil, which is what I do. So I guess that pretty much covers it.
So Peggy, did you attend the academy, the certificate program?
Did I? I'm sorry?
Did you attend
the
academy, I think, right?
Oh, yes, I did. I'm sorry. I did. I got a degree in English from Penn, and I worked for a while. And in the 80s, I went back to PAFA full-time and got a certificate in painting. And I also did a lot of printmaking at that time. And also somewhere before that, I guess, I was doing a lot of color landscape photography with a 4x5 camera. But I finally settled on painting as the medium that I like best. So I've been doing that for a lot of years.
Great. So people have questions for Peggy?
Let's see.
Anybody? You can unmute yourself to just launch into a question.
I have a question for Peggy about the flash paint that I think it was so beautiful to see in person. I went to the gallery on Thursday, I think. I really enjoyed the shimmery, iridescent quality of your paintings, even more in person. And
thank you. Thank you.
I just wanted to say, like, is there anything you want to say about using that base color or medium?
Yeah, I forgot to mention it. The flash line has a bunch of those iridescent colors, and I started with the straight colors, and I've lately moved to the iridescent ones because I love the extra kind of the way the light bounces off of them. Yeah, and there's a few of those in the gallery. Thank you for mentioning that. I forgot. But that's another thing last few months the painting I've been doing. I love that effect. And then when I finish, I paint the acrylic ground. I do the painting in oil, and then I'll go back off and enhance the iridescent part, paint in a little more flash here and there. So yeah, I love that. So it's made everything much more interesting for me. And I can't figure out how to get my face back. Oh,
You're
I just did, I think.
The
oh yeah. Yeah, sorry. So
no, that's okay. I just wanted to say that something I've been thinking about, and some of my paintings have a little iridescent paint too in this particular show, it's interesting question as to what do you get from looking at a painting in person that you cannot get from a photograph? Like, and I think that iridescent quality, you know, it's something that's special that you see in the light, in the changing light of the room as you move around it. It's really nice.
Yeah, well, my paintings actually lights and they enhance that iridescent look, and they also make the frames. Some of the colors in the paintings start to be reflected in the frames, the silver ones at least. So that's another interesting thing. Yeah, you're right. The light you see them in makes a difference. So, and I like paintings also with gold in them, you know, medieval paintings, and some of the oil sticks I have are gold and copper, and I have a bunch of those colors, platinum color, those kinds of colors, which I find add a lot when you start adding them to the regular, you know, oil colors you're using. So you get, like this one has oil, the Tina's showing has oil stick in it. And I forget, I think the ground might have been all oil stick on that one.
Right.
Anyway, it just, and the flowers, that's all the oil paint, but it just gives it, I don't know, to me, it gives it something extra, a little more interesting, at least for me, working on it. It's actually fun.
Yeah.
A lot of fun trying to decide what to add, which color, which gold, silver, anyway.
Peggy, what artistic influences do you have, would you say?
Well, I've always been attracted to painters who do like Matisse, Bonnard, people who do paintings with the interior and outside, what's outside the window. I love that kind of thing. I love very loose painting too. I love Fairfield Porter. I'm really attracted to painters, or James Freilich, painters who don't always show you everything that they're painting, that there's some kind of little bit of a mystery there, like especially when you see some of their paintings in person. They're brief and they don't copy every little thing, but they manage to really capture what they're looking at. That kind of painting really interests me. So the more mysterious it is, like how did the person do that? I find that to be the most interesting kind of painting, and what they chose to put in, what they left out.
Mm-hmm.
And I find myself leaving out more and more now than I used to. I used to be trying to paint everything. I don't do that anymore. Anyway. But thank you, Sarah. You asked great questions, and Michael.
That one really reminds me, you know, of Matisse. I see when you say Matisse, it's got all these nods to Matisse. It's very loose.
Yeah, I love his Nice paintings.
Yeah.
I love those constructed interiors in the hotels with the figures and the flowers and he's got all his things that he uses over and over again. I love all that. I saw a show, I forget where it was. It was about Matisse, and it had in it also all the objects he collected, and they actually had them in the exhibit.
Was that the textile one at the Met?
I think
I saw the textile Matisse.
It might have been in San Francisco.
Oh, okay.
I think it might have been at the museum in San Francisco, and I was just lucky enough to happen to be there when it was going on. Yeah, they had all the stuff, the chairs and the vases, and he had all kinds of unusual looking objects that he used to put in paintings over and over, and I love all that. I think it's and I love the atmosphere he creates in those paintings. And because when you think about it, he was just in a hotel room, like a wallpapered hotel room with a view out the window. It really wasn't that exotic, but he made it extremely mysterious and exotic. So anyway, that's the kind of thing I'm attracted to.
That's great. Thanks so much, Peggy.
You're welcome. Thank you.
There was a question in the chat about the bronze sculpture that you showed. Who did the bronze sculpture, or where did that come from?
I did it.
I
bought it. I didn't do it. No, I bought it from Gary Weissman. He's a sculptor who went to PAFA when I did, and he has his own foundry. I haven't seen him in ages, but he does both his own work and he casts for other artists.
All right, well, we'll move on to Nancy Cooke. If you'd want to talk a little bit about your work, yourself, your path.
Right. Well, first, I just want to say it requires so much dedication, work, and talent to curate and hang a show like this. And I'd like to thank Tina and Michael for including me here with these two wonderful artists, Sarah and Peggy. I've been creating mainly with mixed media for the last couple of years, resulting in compositions that tend to fall more and more towards the more abstract end of the abstraction spectrum. And they've usually been informed by my observations of nature and landscape, and furthermore by my internal and personal dialogue. They are, in essence, my response to the natural world and how nature in all its forms feels to me.
I do.
Color is a predominant feature of nature's impact on my practice, and I select colors that feel natural to me and are in synergy with my response to what I'm thinking about. And often this results in a palette that may not conform to formal rules of color theory or harmony, but rather to the character of the images I'm trying to create. I began making art towards the end of my long career as a physician, scientist, and professor at the University of Pennsylvania. And this transition to art was based on my lifelong interest in interacting with the creative process. And it allowed me, after years of intense immersion in basic biomedical science, to maintain a new form of creativity in my life through art making. So I've frequently been asked how I intended to bring my past research career into my art, because these two areas seem so disparate to many people. But this question usually puzzled me because the two endeavors, in fact, seem to share a common foundation. My understanding of basic science is that its intent is to describe nature and its underlying processes. Because of this, it seems only natural that I would be drawn to nature-based forms and shapes in my artistic practice. Scientific research itself is an abstract activity. It's highly reductionist, and in its maneuvering and required technical approaches to model natural processes in simplified ways, it allows them to be defined in detail. So thus the scientist ends up at the end with a metaphor or simplified model of the problem, or that is to say, an abstraction. So these prior experiences in science led me towards an abstract direction in my painting and away from the earlier recognized landscapes and forms. You might even be able to see this progression in my paintings that are in this show. So this is the way my past biomedical experiences have informed the basic structure of my current art practice. Similarly, I've had a lifelong interest in wild birds and their photography, and this has led me to a natural appreciation and use of vibrant colors, which can be absent in the life of a laboratory scientist or a medical clinician. And finally, I just want to say a few words about my process. My largest painting in this show was oil paint on canvas, while all the others were mixed media on wood panels with either oil paint and cold wax medium or acrylic paint. The smaller and more recent paintings were created as part of two independent series, whereas the larger painting was part of my student work at PAFA, from which I graduated in 2018. So I tend to initiate my works very loosely without any specific image in mind, and as the layers of paint, collage, monoprint, and drawn marks build up, I begin to locate the composition that the painting itself seems to be suggesting. And I think that this process of layering and removing, leading to changes on the painting surface, serves as a strong parallel to the concept of evolution over time of flora and fauna and natural processes in nature. So I hope you'll all enjoy our combined exhibition here, and I again thank Tina and Michael for all their work developing this show during such difficult times and for supporting local artists. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Nancy. So questions for Nancy?
So I have a question. Hi, Nancy, it's Reuven here. In terms of the painting that's actually showing on the screen right now, it looks like a lot of collage elements. Do you start out with the collage to as a study, or do you dive right into the painting?
The one here that's on the screen right now is actually oil paint and cold wax predominantly. I don't think there were any collage. There might have been a collage element at the beginning, but they don't define the composition. I just take bits of them and work them in later as the layers develop.
Okay, so you work layer over layer at times.
Yes. It changes as one goes forward.
Now with acrylics, it would be, which I paint in, that would be, you know, pretty easy process. With oil, do you have to wait a long time between your layers?
Yeah, you have to wait for, I often wait for drying, but you can work wet into wet, of course. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, my name's Elizabeth Heller. I really like your paintings a lot and I respond to them emotionally. And I wondered if you have emotions in your mind and thoughts while you're making them. And also the second part of the question is, are there other abstract artists that you feel particularly akin to?
Yeah, I try to incorporate my feelings into these paintings. I never know if I'm successful or not, so thank you for your comment. And, you know, the painters I like often have not much relationship to what I'm doing. You know, I mean, in the recent past, I've been interested in Peter Doig and Ryder, Turner, people like that. Yeah.
I'm glad that Tina is over by these paintings, because I particularly was drawn to the one on, well, I like them both, but the one on the bottom, or the way you're using these sort of frosted window glaze, like little views into the space, but also like it's kind of providing like a barrier to the space in certain ways. Is that called frosted
Yeah,
window?
I think, yes. I think what I was trying to do was put a glaze of white, which you know is very opaque.
Yeah.
So I'd put it on and take it off as quickly as I could, and I think that gave that quality. Yeah.
It's like vignettes of with the frosted.
Yeah.
Frosted
Thank you.
face. Really beautiful.
Curious about the hanging, Michael. You paired certain paintings. Was that a decision you made with Nancy, or just for space considerations, or is it a pair, the ones that hang vertically?
Sorry, Anissa, I had to open the door for someone.
I was asking about the hanging of the shoe.
Yes.
You know, and pairing of two paintings vertically, hanging them in that way. Was that a decision you made, or are they a pair?
No, we look for ways to sort of stop the viewer, I suppose, to like create vignettes rather than just do a continuous or separate each artist's work. We want to create like stopping points or places to focus. And if things are pragmatically, if things are the same size and framed alike, you know, we can pair them. It's trouble when things are framed differently, you know, or different sizes, different widths.
Right.
Right then. Well, Sarah.
Hi, yes. All right, so I just also want to thank Mike and Tina for putting together this really beautiful show and such a great opportunity for all of us. You know, Tina, for example, talked to me ahead of time about hanging these two paintings together, and I thought it was a good idea. I like the idea of pairing them. They are these paintings are individual, I would say, portraits of certain flowers that are in my garden. So I took the title very literally. I've been told I have a very literal frame of mind sometimes, and I painted literally from my garden, or which is something I've been doing. I've been drawing in my garden for years. I started a garden sketchbook in 2006, a couple years after I moved into a new home and had a garden of perennials. And when something like perennial in particular would bloom, I would rush out and try to draw it or paint it. And then, you know, a couple years ago, I had this idea to make a painting, and it actually kind of came to me in a dream, I think, and I call it Dream Garden, to make a tall painting that included every perennial in the garden blooming at one time. So that's what this painting Tina's focusing on right now is called Dream Garden. And it's made from sketches that I made from life over many years. And it took me many years to finish it. I think I started it in either late 2017 or early 2018. And I was just painstakingly kind of putting in one flower at a time. This is not my strong suit to paint very small. I was trying to paint miniature for this particular painting. It may be a little bit inspired by a painting that's at the Philadelphia Museum of Art, which is by the master of the embroidered foliage. It's a Virgin and Child painting. That's it's an old panel painting with a lot of detail. Painting also includes my cats, who are all alley cats who came from the yard. They showed up back there in one state or another and needed some help, and now they're, my cats. Also, this painting I think of as somewhat of a bird's eye view, not necessarily real space. Of course, there are birds in the garden and other pollinators. When the cats are out there, you don't really see the birds hanging around, but that painting took forever, and it's paired with, if Tina's gonna go across, it's paired with the another painting called Threshold, which Threshold is more of the view of the garden at a specific moment from inside the house, from the kitchen, whereas the Dream Garden is kind of existing out of time. This one is supposed to be more of a moment in time. And I liked that I was hearing about Bonnard. Bonnard, for some reason, really was in my mind as I was making this painting, Threshold, which also took me several years to complete. And all three of the cats are also in this painting, as well as some monarchs. One of my friends gave me some milkweed, and of course I live in Philadelphia, and I planted the milkweed, and indeed I have monarchs coming every year now to the garden, and I've been raising the monarchs in the little house and then releasing them, and it's really amazing to me that's happening right here in Philadelphia. And several of my neighbors in our row are also monarch, trying to create a habitat for monarchs in the backyard, and I think it's really working. I could, Tina, maybe you're going to show, This painting is of a studio plant, and I believe I painted it in the winter, but it's an amaryllis that was given to me by my mother, and it was painted in the studio in front of a Matisse poster. So I was inspired actually also by Matisse. We were talking about Matisse. A poster of a Matisse cutout. So this one's called Stella, and all the stars, however, are very thick paint. The stars actually took over a year to dry. There's so much thick yellow paint there that I was glad they were finally dry to bring them in for the show. I have like stories about all my plants. I feel like the plants that I have are old friends, and they have connections to family and friends who might have given them to me, or that remind me of people. Like, for example, I know Astrid is here. She gave me the lemon lily that I painted on the other wall. And and then this small little painting of the amaryllis. This is a baby of that big amaryllis. And I had taken it to school last winter, and it was in my studio at school with the classroom at Tyler. And a number, my students actually painted it in with a model, and then we had to go home for the shutdown, and I had it in the studio with me here. And I actually sort of painted this painting when it bloomed and shared it with my students to try to provide some continuity from being in the classroom and then working remotely. And that little panel painting was just like a chance to make that connection. I do have a few pictures from my sketchbook. If Mike, do you think that's an okay thing if I shared the screen for a minute?
Definitely.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen, and let's see here. So as I say, I've been sort of drawing in sketchbooks for years, and here's just a few examples. And as I was painting that larger painting, I also tried to, if a flower bloomed in my garden, I would try to go put it in the dream garden at that time when it was blooming. This is the crocus in the snow. And these are like either pencil and ink, or in some cases, some colored pencil. The dandelion, many plants, of course, I plant, and then other plants already are there. And dandelions, although they're a weed, I love them. The bleeding hearts. Maybe there's some gardeners here in this group. This is the lilac. This was something I was really happy as a gardener. I got these lilac bushes as tiny babies transplanted from my family's home, and they finally bloomed. It was a whole big thing because the squirrels ate them, and eventually years later they did bloom. And this is my French purple lilac. I have another sketchbook which I was doing more with dry media, like colored pencils. In this case, this is my little orange rose and the bee. You can see the scale of the sketchbook. This one was a colored pencil study of the lavender. The sketchbooks are small, and I just go out and sit in the garden and work for the most part. A white iris, also a perennial from my parents' garden. Clematis, that was a gift for my birthday one year. That's blooming today, in fact. A tiger lily. And I drew this summer. It's just a zinnia. I do have some annuals that I've also drawn, obviously. I try to draw everything. But if I go back to the the works, if we look at, for example, a close-up of that painting, you can see, like, if I kind of zoom in, even I was trying to draw them more or less to scale. And so there are, you can see, for example, the irises, and the crocus, and various, like every plant out there. I tried to represent it. So anybody have any questions? There's many more sketches. Like, I don't want to show all these because there's just too many, but there's many more sketches of various plants as well. But I'll stop sharing.
So Sarah, I have a question for you.
Of course.
So you've shown here since 2006, and you had a solo show. So how do you feel your work has evolved from over that time?
That's a great question. I think that when I was in 2006, I was working on the environment. I was kind of bouncing off my environment at one of my employers. I work at the Philadelphia Museum of Art, and that show had to do with my immersion in the galleries and looking at the art from all different angles. And so in a way it was painting my environment, but it looked very different than this work. This is still a sort of based on an investigation of the environment that I'm in, but this is more of my own home and garden. I mean, my work looks very different. I think this show I think almost all of my exhibitions have a different look. I guess I do try to treat them as a different project for myself. This one maybe is the most natural one because it's growing out of something I've been doing for years and years. And I've learned so much about art from the garden. It's a strange thing to say maybe, but just like every perennial plant has its season, and it's just like great to have, you know, as a gardener, you try to provide an environment that the plants can be happy in, and then also the rest of the ecosystem or what's happening out there it's beyond me, you know, which is really how art is as well. Art is sort of just try to keep it going, but it's actually beyond my control. And I have a lot of thoughts about the garden lately in terms of what we're going through. I do think of in the shutdown and the pandemic, and even the political environment, that the garden is like a sanctuary. It provides a habitat for like all of these creatures and plants, and also myself. So I feel like it is somewhat of like a sanctuary. And I remember one of my favorite books from high school was Candide by Voltaire. And in Candide, the end sort of point of it is to tend your garden, sort of try to take care of your own sphere. And I think that's what I have, always been trying to do with the garden. And plus I just enjoy it. To me, it's beautiful, but beyond that, when the garden gets out of control and it's very full of weeds or whatever, I notice there's a lot of bees there. So it's a habitat, it's working on that level, even if it's not perfectly a kempt situation. There's a lot of benign neglect that's in my life. Like my garden is neglected. Everything is partly neglected because I'm kind of scattered and I have 3 jobs and I have my studio. But benign neglect works okay. And, even as a teacher, I think that's somewhat of my teaching philosophy. To let people do their own thing and just try to provide support. So I don't know. I guess that's about it. I could take questions though.
Yeah, are there other questions for Sarah? Caroline?
Yeah, I had a question.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, I love your philosophy of gardening. Just wanted to put that out there. And the benign neglect is really important because so many plants, well, the birds plant the plants, they're the real gardeners.
Yes.
in part,
Sure.
So same thing, I saw a white wood aster in my garden that if I had time this summer, I probably would have weeded it.
Yeah.
By accident, but it was just covered with bees.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad to know there are so many other gardeners in Philadelphia who are supporting the pollinators.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted to say. Your work is wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Caroline has a question.
Hi, Sarah. It's good to see you.
Hi, Caroline.
Hi. As Peggy and Nancy and you were speaking, I was, all sorts of things were bouncing off. The use of the metallic that Peggy showed. I was seeing Gustav Klimt all over the place. And as you, Sarah, were showing your artwork, as Tina was showing your artwork, I was seeing, the unicorn tapestries that have all these little horticultural, it's like a horticultural inventory.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I was, seeing. And what it made me think of was,
She's gone.
What is the motivation of the artist in creating these heavenly, idealized, perfect spaces, like you said, Sarah, places of sanctuary? Is it that you, as an artist, is this your view of life? Is it your responsibility as an artist to give positive support to the people who view your artwork? I mean, artists can be really depressive. I mean, there can be a lot of depression in what an artist presents. What I'm seeing with Peggy's and Nancy's and Sarah's work is there's a motivation to support both themselves and the viewer with an idealized vision of perfection in the garden image. What do you three artists feel is the motivation for you to be painting gardens?
Well, I think, you know, the garden for me, like this, it really did grow like a seed out of the sketchbook, that particular painting. And that was just me a little bit thinking about like just actually recording something as in a diary, like something that was actually happening over a long period of time. And then to put it together in the larger painting, that is somewhat of a fantasy, right? Like, and maybe, but, so I don't know if I was necessarily considering the audience as much as my own personal satisfaction with that. Just trying to create sort of a sublime moment, which could never exist. It's a fantasy. But in another way, it is sort of a map of the garden and what's happened over time, whether it's a season or over the years. I mean, yeah, I guess there's some element of thinking about I mean, I look at a lot of art, you know, and I appreciate all of it, I think, on many levels. There is something about like a painting that lasts, you know, it is sort of it holds a concept, it holds a sense of time, and that, you know, to me that's an interesting thing that a painting does. You know, I mean, I know you're a writer, Caroline, and books do the same thing in a way, but everything in a painting is existing all at the same time for a long period of time, over time. And I think paintings need to be, you need to spend time with them for them to kind of unfold what's in them. A good painting will keep unfolding, you know, over days and years, even if you spend time with it. But I don't know if I answered your question.
Any other questions for Sarah or any of the other artists? Bill.
I have just in response to what you said in the question about the writing, I never really thought about that. People always ask me, what do you want the viewer to get back from your picture? And when you're painting it, I never think about anybody else when I'm painting the picture. But when I write, I actually am thinking about the person who I want to be as clear as I can and write to one person. Mm-hmm. But so that more than one person will know what I'm trying to say. But in painting, it never occurs to me, and I never thought of that before, this question that you posed. That that's a really big difference between the two processes. Which might not mean anything to anybody but me right now.
Oh, that's a great point. I mean, I think it has to do with the audience, right? Like, who do you imagine as your audience?
Yeah.
And it could be someone that you know. You could be, you know, painting a painting and want to share it with some specific person. In the case of the paintings I made for this show, wasn't necessarily for someone else. Although weirdly, the painting of phlox that I made, the phlox painting, I was painting it, and during the time I was painting it, I was listening to NPR, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away that day. So I was too close to the end, and I scratched her initial into the painting. That one is for Ruth Bader Ginsburg's passing, and flowers are often used as a memorial, of course. So that one I would say is a memorial.
Yeah.
Nancy and Peggy, I'm kind of interested in your thoughts about that. you know, when you're working, does the viewer factor in at all?
No, but I don't think about, well, I always hope that I'm going to make a painting that somebody else is going to like and think is beautiful, because I try always, I think that's my goal, to try to make paintings that are beautiful in some way, in terms of color or the feeling they evoke when you look at them. So I'm always interested in beauty and creating something that makes you feel good. So I'm never attracted to art that's too political, or I like things that are very direct, and that you just respond to the color and the way the brushwork and the atmosphere the artist has been able to create. So that's what I'm attracted to in art and in painting. And I kind of just bypass things that don't address those issues. And I always hope that other people will see beauty in the paintings I do. So,
Nancy, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I guess I'm earlier on the path than everybody else here, but I'm still trying to discover what I'm looking for. And so I keep experimenting, and I'm only concentrating on the painting and, you know, looking to find what I'm looking for, whatever that is. And so I really don't think of an audience at all.
You know, that might not have anything to do with how early you are on your path. It's, you know, I really don't think it is. It's in your nature, I think. And I don't think it will change as you paint for many, many years, you know. It's just how you proceed when you're in your studio. And that could be 30 years from now, you might not think of the audience at all. Like what Bill was saying, and I would have to agree for myself as well, working many years in my studio, so.
Yeah, I agree. I don't really think I was thinking about, for the most part, anyone but my own is maybe a meditation of my own. That's how my practice is.
Yeah. I was talking to somebody this morning who's a painter my age, and whose parents were both painters, and she was frustrated with what she was doing, and she said, "Oh my God, I just realized my whole life I've been trying to paint a picture that would please my mother. Why have I been doing that?" And you know, who knows when you realize why you're doing what you're doing, and that changes. But at least you keep doing it. You know, I mean, if your mother can inspire you to paint, use it. You know, and if she doesn't, get rid of her. I don't know. I find painting so hard anyways these days, because it's, I mean, your show looks beautiful. I want to come see it. I look forward to seeing all of it. But I mean, kudos to all of you for painting right now. I find painting requires such a sense of vulnerability that I'm just not willing to allow myself any more sense of vulnerability these past couple of months. So the studio work has really evaporated.
It's hard.
So this is affirming to go back and be vulnerable. So thanks for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I must say, hanging the show was pretty restorative for the two of us, because as we unwrapped one work after the other, we felt our mood lift.
oh, that's good.
To see everything, you know, up, and so thank you for that. And is there any other last questions for anybody before we wrap it up? Well, thank you to the artists, and thank you to everyone for coming. Let's give the artists a round of applause.
Thank you.
So the show is up through November 22nd. And like I said, you can come and visit anytime. And you can also see the work on our website. And if you have any questions, you know, just let us know. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Don't put a
you.
clapping hand.
Well done.